So at this point, you would think that I would have left him by now, but I didn't. I always made up reasons why I needed to stay. Not saying that I didn't have good reasons. I was young and I was naive, and so some of that played into it. Not realizing that it might have been okay for me to go, but I was terrified of having to share 50-50 custody with a man who had proven to me over and over again he was unstable. And I thought the best way for me to protect my children at all times was to stay. And at least in staying, I would know that I could look out for them the best that I could, 100% of the time. So now we're going to fast forward again to now my children are both in elementary school. I guess basically the best way to tell this story is just flat out. My husband started having an affair on me. And it was 8 months of absolute torture. Emotional torture, I mean. Before I was able to expose the truth and prove the truth. And during this 8 months, he treated me horribly. The abuse came back, and this time it was mixed with humiliation. I think he hated me, really. And I don't know, there was something very wrong in his head, but little bouts of physical abuse began again, mixed with public humiliation and even some sexual abuse. And from wanting to shove his hands down my pants in public, somehow thinking, I don't know what he was thinking, why try, to sodomy against my will. I don't know. I mean, really, I don't like looking back at it. I'm thankful it's over. The only reason why I'm telling you guys my story is because I want to share my life story with you guys so that you will see I didn't just come skipping through a valley of flowers to get to where I am today. And I wanted to share with you what a very real earthly life I have lived. And no matter how dark or horrible, I decided that in this video I would expose all my darkest secrets. Because if there's anyone out there who watches this video, be it today or 50 years from now, I want them to know that I came through really hard things and found the most amazing, incredible life. Something I actually left out because I completely forgot about it is, back when I was 16 and I was dating that guy who was mentally abusive. When he broke up with me, I started hanging out with one of his friends. And we were only friends. He'd befriended me because he'd seen what was done to me. And he knew I was having a really hard time. So, well, his ex-girlfriend got really jealous. And she saw us walking down the street one day. And she chased me in her car up onto sidewalks while I ran from her, convinced she was going to run me over with her car. And she was making it very clear that she would like to do so. I think she would have liked to have killed me. She was convinced that I was sleeping with her, who was her ex-boyfriend, but clearly she didn't want it that way. And I ran for my life, jumping backyard fences, making my way home to escape her. But what was weird is when I got home, it hit me, this feeling of absolute worthlessness. A level of just worthlessness that's undescribable. And I decided I did want to die. Not by the hand of someone else who hated me, but I actually did want to die. And I went into the medicine cabinet and I began to swallow handfuls of pills. And I thought that what I thought would happen is that I would just lay down and fall asleep and not wake up. And I thought that sounds like an easy way to go. So, quite some time had passed and I really wasn't getting the results that I wanted. And I was talking to that same friend on the phone that evening when I started to feel kind of weird and my ears started ringing really loudly. And I thought to myself, you know what? I think that this might be it. Like, maybe it's working. And I thought to myself, you know what? I don't actually want to leave this world without somebody knowing what I did and why. And so I proceeded to tell him that I had taken all these pills because I was hoping to fall asleep and not wake up. Well, he reacted in a way I didn't expect, and he hung up on me. And apparently he had called 911. So the next thing I know, my mother is yelling at me from upstairs and asking me to come upstairs. And there are firemen and an ambulance at our house. And my mother saying to me, "Did you do something that I need to know about?" And so I ended up admitting what I had done with no clue as to what I was in for. Oh boy. So I was taken in the ambulance and I was taken to the hospital, to the emergency room, where I was immediately rushed to the back and they put an IV in me and then they put a tube down my throat with this thing attached to the end of it that they would squeeze like this. And it's called getting your stomach pumped. And what they do is force you to vomit over and over again. It is the most awful experience of my life. There's no way for me to explain to you what it feels like, but if you know how bad it feels to vomit, to have someone forcing you to vomit against your will to the point you can't catch your breath. They did this until I was vomiting blood. And then when they were finally finished, they gave me some charcoal, which I then threw up all over the place. Anyways, this was the beginning of a long, hard period of my life, because then I was admitted into Cedar Springs Mental Hospital as an inpatient for other young people like me who were disturbed. That was a long few weeks. Yikes. Anyways, it went from a long few weeks of being an inpatient to being a long few months of my life. Just really hard time of life. Psychiatrist and psycho pills, and I could go on about that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to move on. So we're going to go back to my husband having an affair. I finally bust him. And I'm so relieved. Like, I can finally quit feeling like I'm nutso. There's this sense of relief. Like, oh my God, it's finally over. Like, I can finally, it's exposed and it's out there. And I don't have to feel like I'm crazy anymore. And, the morning after I exposed him was really hard, because I knew I had to tell my children that me and their daddy were breaking up. And that was so heartbreaking, to have to sit there with my two children and tell them that their daddy wasn't going to come home. Was brutal. And to watch them cry and ask me why. Hard day in my life. That day, my husband at the time came home and fell on his knees in front of me and his children and begged forgiveness and cried and said he wanted to come home and he wanted to be a good husband and he didn't want to break up our family. And well, again, you thought I would have left him at this point. And I didn't. I didn't want to break up my kids' home. I didn't want to break up my home. Despite everything I had gone through, I just wanted to fix everything. I just wanted to make it okay. A few months later, when I'm starting to feel like maybe there's hope, I was on our home computer, and all of a sudden this weird thing popped up in the search history, and it was to a porn site. And I was pretty alarmed and went to my husband and said, "Oh my gosh, you don't think it could be possible that our son was looking at this. Do you? Because our son would do homework on that computer. And he, at the least, didn't let our son take the rap for it and admitted that he was the one who had been looking at porn. And I lost it. I absolutely lost it. I told him, that's it. It's over. I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. And he's begging and pleading, like, no, please don't leave me, not for this. And I stopped and I looked at him and I said, it's not for this. I'm not leaving you for this. I'm leaving you for all of it. And for the fact that you keep proving nothing is ever going to get better. Like, it's constantly something. And I'm so sick and tired of it. Like, I deserve better than this. And it took me a few days. I was pretty angry. And yet again decided to stay. I stayed for another 6 years after that. And 6 years later, I ended up having an affair of my own. And that's what caused me to leave him. It wasn't because I had fallen in love with someone else. It wasn't because I was madly attracted to them. The truth is, I had an affair on purpose because my heart still hadn't healed. And I was still crying in secret. And I just couldn't get over everything that had been done. And I needed out. So to my shame, that's how I chose to do it. Which led me into my next round of miserable decisions, one after the other. Out drinking in the bar, getting drunk. Ended up having multiple relationships. So I finally ended up in a relationship that I felt like I was more madly in love than I had ever felt before. There was just one problem. I didn't feel like I could trust him. And it turned into a lot of fighting. Overall, it just wasn't healthy. And after, I don't know if it went a full year, but I ended up breaking up with him and moving out. And I was the most heartbroken. Oh, wow. I mean, talk about a heart shattered. I would wake up in the middle of the night crying right out of my sleep. And I was in a really bad place. And finally felt like I had hit rock bottom. And so I was driving in my car one day, and I remember just crying out to God and saying, that's it, I'm done. Like, I literally have nothing left. I have nowhere left to turn. I have nothing left to explore. I've literally come to the end of myself. There's nothing left for me to do but turn to you. And I just wept. I wept and I let it all out. And I said, I give you everything. Like, I'm done. I'm done living life without you. Well, during this time of supposedly turning back to God, I was, but I wasn't. Like, I was praying and talking to him, and trying to go, like, relationship free, and I started to feel a lot better, a lot healthier, and it was during this time that I started making YouTube videos for the first time ever, and just kind of really finding myself, me, myself, and I, and life started to get pretty good. But I wasn't reading the Bible. And I started listening to this guy on YouTube, especially when I was feeling really lonely. I would specifically go to this guy on YouTube who happened to be teaching New Age. But I didn't realize that. I didn't really know what that was. So all I knew is his message made me feel less lonely. And I started to adopt a lot of his ideas. So a lot of what I was believing was things that I thought lined up with the Bible. Like, if you really believe something and you just begin to believe it so much, you can make it your reality, and you can literally begin to speak things into existence and recreate your whole world, all just by the power of your own will. And the law of attraction was a huge part of what I started adopting. Just, I can literally create anything in my life that I want. And I just started really getting strong with those ideas. Like, all the while I'm doing these New Age ways of thinking and acting, I was totally meshing it with what I thought about God. And, in my mind, I was totally on the right track. Like, I've got it figured out. And where should I go with this? I'm going to actually fast forward to, it was approaching New Year 2020. And the guy who I really liked watching, the New Age guy on YouTube, he got into a point where he started saying some really strong things that didn't line up with the Bible. And I knew that much. And it really caused alarm for me. And I thought, I'm not sure about this guy. And it was after Kanye West had made some, like, he'd come, supposedly had come to Jesus. I don't know whether he did or not. That's not the point of this. But he'd made some album about the Lord, and this New Age guy was bringing that up and basically saying, Kanye, sorry, but you got it all wrong. And was saying, we are all gods. we are the gods. We are the ones who possess all the power. Like, just saying blatant things like, there's no God who rules over us. We are the rulers of our own existence and destiny, basically. So, I was pretty disturbed by that, and at that moment, I decided to quit listening to him. But at the same time, still had some of those new age ways of thinking going in my head. Thinking, well, maybe all of it wasn't wrong or all of it wasn't bad or... Well, anyways, tied with the new age thinking, I had gotten it in my mind that the year 2020 was going to be the year of perfect vision. We all know that if you have 20/20 vision, it means that you have perfect eyesight. And so I truly believe that the year 2020 is going to be the year of perfect vision, and that for all mankind, that people's eyes were going to be opened and that we were going to see more perfectly things that we couldn't see before. And it was actually New Year's Eve when I was laying in bed, and I decided to say a prayer, actually praying to the Most High God. And I prayed, Lord, give me perfect vision. I want to see clearly the truth of who you are and your will and what you want for my life. I just want to see more clearly than ever before. And I just believed with all my heart, like, that was going to happen. Well, it did. He answered me. Not the way that I thought. And that week, I came across a video by another man named Stephen, who was an ex-New Ager who had dove way deeper into that more than I ever had. Apparently, he was making $40,000 to $50,000 a month in ad revenue alone. He had well over 100,000 followers on his webpage, and I don't know, on and on and on. I'll probably put a link for him below, just in case you want to check him out. I've put links to him in at least one other video I made before, but I start listening to him talk about what happened to him, and that the New Age was actually a cult, which is actually satanic. And he talks about his experience and what basically scared him straight and brought him to an experience with Jesus. And he gives his whole testimony. It's really amazing. So I think what I'll do is find his testimony video, and I'll put it in the description below of this. But thanks to him, my eyes were just completely open fully to the truth of the New Age cult and all the things that they believe and how rampant it is, and how we're all so very unaware of just exactly what it all involves and how it has saturated our society today. And talk about getting your prayers answered, to have your eyes opened. My eyes were wide open, and it has not stopped since that day. Not just to New Age, but God just started unraveling thing after thing after thing after thing, like day after week after month, just started unraveling truths about and just exposing things of this world that have just corrupted our lives that we didn't know the truths about. And needless to say, the other thing that started happening after that is I really started getting into the Word of God and really seeking the Bible and reading it every day. And then every day turned into multiple times a day. And multiple times a day turned into deep studies about specific things. And my hunger for His Word has just grown. And my desire to know Him, not an idea of Him, but a desperate desire to know who He is, to understand how He feels and how He thinks. And He has just flooded my life with everything I could have ever hoped for. And He's bringing perfection to my life in a way that I've never got to know before. And my hunger for Him and my desire to love other people is unlike anything I've ever experienced before. You know, when I first started making YouTube videos, I was excited about it. But I can't say that I was excited about it the way that I am now, because my desire to help you and my desire to help teach you things that I've never known or learned before now, including deeper meanings of Scripture. God has even blessed me in that way with someone very special who helps show me deeper meaning of Scripture that I've never had the gift of knowing before. And in turn, I just can't wait for every opportunity that I get to come and show those things to you. I definitely don't just want to keep them for myself, because I want to help as many people as I can. And that's why I made this video. I will say that this is the hardest video I've ever made. And part of me is going, I can't believe you're going to put this out there for the whole world to see. Well, I am. And I really hope that it makes a difference for anyone at all. I'll continue to do everything I can to love on you, and I keep you in my prayers. Thanks for watching this very long, drawn out, we'll call it a movie at this point, story of my life. This is Angel Orcutt. Thanks for watching. God bless.